When I was growing up, I worked in factories to put myself through school, and undergrad and law school, and loading trucks is what I did. You know, that's what I did all the time. And gone are the days of manufacturing jobs. You can walk right out of high school with no skills and walk right into a plant and start screwing a bolt on a crankcase. Those days are gone. In order to compete on the world stage, we've needed to automate and get leaner and meaner. And that means when you go to factories like I have around here, the ones that are left, you see machines doing the manual labor and people learning how to monitor the machines to make sure the machines are doing what they're supposed to do. And you can't just take someone right out of high school and plop right into that job. They're not ready. And that's something that I think our high schools have not been able to keep up with. I think the biggest problem with that is the measurables for high school have been how many kids are going to college, right? And how many kids do certain things. And it's about test scores, and it's about getting good grades. And yes, that's important, but it also fails to recognize that not everyone's made for college, and not everyone's made for a career as a lawyer or a doctor or Lord knows a politician. So that's what this is all about, and that's why I'm such a big believer in this. We've done some things in Congress to provide more money for career technical education, which is really important. This president is very much in vocational training. His daughter was up here with me to talk about the PTAC program and some of the successes. I think getting these kids at an early age and making them realize that manufacturing not only is the critical component of our economy, that it's cool, that it's good, it's a good career, it's a great career. I don't know how many kids, I'm sure we all have the same story that I have. I'm going to tell you right now, no kids who went to college because they thought they were supposed to go to college, and then after bouncing around a couple of colleges, 3 or 4 years later, they're doing what they want to do. They're doing a trade. They're going to working in manufacturing, and they're happy. But they also got $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 in debt from education that they never wanted. And not that education is bad. Education is great, and you do need education to get into the manufacturing sector now. But there's different ways to go about it, and the PTAC program is such a great thing because you're intervening with kids at an earlier age and getting them on that track. So by the time they graduate high school, they're well on their way to getting an associate's degree, perhaps, or going on to college, but getting into the manufacturing sector, or going right into the manufacturing sector because they have the right skills. And that's what this is all about today. And I'm here to listen, believe it or not, more than I'm going to talk. And I want to learn, and I want to be able to keep being a cheerleader for you in Congress. The tax cuts that we did in Congress were another key component, in my opinion, because on the world stage we can't compete when our taxes were double, triple, and quadruple most of the rest of the world. And we just can't. And so by rejiggering the tax code, we have really made a big difference in our ability to compete. That and the regulatory reform, and now the final components of tariffs and getting those fixed. If we do that, we are setting this economy up for a very good long run. And I think that if we're going to do that, we darn well better get the skills ready for these kids to start filling these jobs. There's going to be a lot of them. And Lord knows Lockheed's doing well in many other sectors. So with that, I just want to say thank you for having me.
Bob Leslie, Director of Career and Technical Education for the City of Syracuse. Miguel Perez III. All right, Miguel, PTech student. So you've got their bios. So take the time to read them. What I'd really like to do is have them tell you what's happening. So we're really going to start with manufacturing. We're going to start ladies first with Val. But what we'd like to know from our manufacturing representatives is, what's going on? What are their needs? What are they missing? And what types of skills do we have to do a better job with? So Val, we'll start with you again. Thank you so much for coming, flying in to make sure you could be here.
Yes,
so.
yes. I was at a factory in Boston yesterday, and they make medical devices like we do at Welch Allen, and they're struggling with some of the same things. And so I asked the plant manager, I said, do you have any partnerships that you work with in the schools or the community colleges or anything like that? And it was a resounding no. So PEB and PTech is a unique competitive advantage for this area, and we should use it for all it's worth as manufacturers, because not every community, not every state has that. So other manufacturers in this country are struggling with the same thing, and I have factories all over the world and all over the country, and I've actually worked in 5 different states in manufacturing. And moving here 3 years ago, this is a unique manufacturing environment. And with MACME, I think we can do some really good things to get it going again. The things that we're looking for in medical device manufacturing, which is Welch Allyn and Welch Allyn's parent company Hillrom, are varied, right? We need everything from materials experience, purchasing, global sourcing, strategic sourcing, multilingual. We also need engineers, manufacturing engineers, all the same things I'm sure that all of you are looking for as well. But we also need tooling and fabrication apprenticeships because we still do a lot of vertical integration in a lot of our factories. So it's not just people who can program test equipment and who can assemble products. It's also more of the technical skills as well in some of the vertical integration like fabrication. So that's really what we're looking for.
Thank you, Bill. And Mark, how about with Budamaki?
So,
And maybe you could tell us what you do because it's not a household name like
No,
around
absolutely
Welch
not.
Allyn.
Budamaki, my plant is in Fulton, New York, and Budamaki is actually a global company. I have corporate headquarters in Espoo, Finland. We have 76 different manufacturing sites globally. 17 of those are in the United States. So I am one of 17 plants producing packaging for consumers and food products. Common customers of ours that you probably do recognize are Nestle, Ben & Jerry's, Turkey Hill, Wegmans. Also the Chinette brand is a Budamaki brand. So we make packaging for food. One thing unique about Fulton is we were actually founded in 1880. Lots of legacy at our site as Oswego Falls Paper Company. Through the evolution and partnership with Budamaki, we've been able to grow. We have about 450 employees today, 22 acres on site, 750,000 square feet just in my plant alone. What that creates for us is a very unique dynamic. We have both external competition as well as internal. Those other 17 plants are very similar manufacturing platforms as ours. So when business goes out for bid, we're often not only competing with our direct competitors, but which plant and manufacturing location gets that and awarded that piece of business. I think opportunities of growing our workforce and the partners in this room really position Central New York in a competitive advantage. When I look at the landscape of my peers within my company, we are leading the way. And that is exciting, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here, as well as represent up at the Oswego campus at BOCES. We've got a team up there trying to create that career spark as well.
Well, thank you so much. And I love what you said, that really what becomes the strategic advantage to grow that plant is the workforce.
Absolutely.
So
Can I interject just for a minute
please
on
do.
that?
As in
And, I learned quite a bit going to Budamaki several times, and the thing that shocked me was the number of people applied for the jobs, and the number of people that actually were qualified to do the work. And it was, I think at one point you cited it was like a 50-to-1 ratio or something like that.
We typically
Which is
have,
stunning to me.
absolutely, we typically have about 300 people apply, and we'll hire about 20 of those through our process with the skill and eligibility required. In Oswego County, we're at about 17% poverty rate. There are people in our community looking for jobs. Manufacturing is the highest average weekly wage in Oswego County. Programs like P-Tech and events like today, I think, are going to spotlight the opportunities that are available, as I mentioned earlier today, for our youth and our communities in manufacturing. It's very exciting to help develop and grow those P-Tech and those apprenticeship programs.
So Mark, and I like the fact that the congressman interrupted and brought that up. So I had the same issue when I was running a plant in Syracuse. So what are the employees, what are the potential employees missing that disqualifies them for the job?
So we do a fundamental reading and math assessment. That roughly takes out about half of the applicants.
Reading and math.
Just reading and math, we use the Department of Labor's Prove It software program. We have very good partners with the Department of Labor and the One Stop in Oswego County. They actually administer our assessment, and what that allows is not only the administrative service for us, but also allows them to identify the candidates who didn't meet our criteria, and then they can offer remediation service. That is a key loop that I think has yielded success for us. If someone is unable to meet it the first time, they're able to go through remediation and then retest within the same hiring cycle.
Okay.
And then get in front of the line.
Wow. That's awesome. And I'm struck by that. But we all know it in manufacturing. It was reading and math that made these folks ineligible, or at least at that point ineligible. One of the things, and I'm going to get to our educators next, one of the things that I'm so excited about today is that a couple weeks ago in MACME's podcast, I interviewed someone that in 1974 started the Community Council on Careers to do exactly what we're doing here today. And the struggle was manufacturing was on board and education wasn't. Because education was focused on get them into college, give them PhDs, and they'll be successful. What I should have done is I should have brought him to this morning so he could see the fruits of labors that were 40 years old. So now let's start, perhaps Bob, with you, and tell us what's happening. How is education addressing these things?
So, David, I think one of the things that we're recognizing, I'm Robert Less, I'm the director for Grade Tech at Syracuse City School District. I'm also a former manufacturing person. I spent a lot of time in the manufacturing world before my education career. And so one of the things that we're looking at, last year, Randy approached Superintendent Alisea and said, we'd like to start a pre-apprenticeship program. And our superintendent, very aggressive as far as our pathways. This is going to be our 27th pathway we're adding in this year. And it's really to focus on what we're talking about, the foundational skills that businesses need for students coming to work. And it's about students who haven't got the focus. They're not, college isn't on their horizon. They want to go to work, but we need to prepare them and we need to teach them about what the expectations are for them to go to work at any of our manufacturing facilities and give them the vision. And I think that's what we always look at Syracuse, what's the vision for kids? How do you get them to understand what it's about? So under working with MACME and PV, the school district has decided to create a pre-apprenticeship program. We're in the middle of designing this phase of this program right now. And if you look at the core skill sets that we're focusing on, and I have to laugh because it's safety, it's math skills, it's looking at assembly, machining, electrical systems, it's talking about basic mechanical understandings, it's the foundational skills of print reading and geometrical tolerancing, so that when these students come in and interview for a job or go out onto internships, they're ready. They have these skills that you would be wanting to build into a student, this entry-level employee. We're going to actually have those skill sets in our students as they go out for their internships. So we're very focused this year on designing the program. We're going to try to have our first cohort of students out this year. We're kind of doing what I call soft start because we're building and flying at the same time.
Sure.
And then next year, this will become our 27th career pathway at Syracuse City School District, focused on students who are interested in going right to work and giving them the skill sets that they'll need to be successful in their jobs. The biggest focus that we have is our career readiness skills. We need to teach students what the expectations are for work. And that's something that, that isn't done. Right. And we need to make sure they understand that being on time, being accountable, being able to be a critical thinker, being aware of working in different teams and different people. That skill set's what businesses want to see. And that's what we're hearing. As we did our first advisory council meeting, it's all about that skill set and the other things, the technical skills second. And then our businesses are going to take them to the next level. And they'll make them what they want for their businesses.
That's awesome. Great. Congressman, you want to-
Yeah, I mean, one of the things, and I know the Syracuse City School District is ahead of the curve. Two observations. First of all, P-TECH is wonderful because it's elastic, based on what the needs are of the school districts. I know, like out in Wayne County, they focus at P-TECH more towards the trades and manufacturing. Here it's more towards manufacturing, which is a bigger need. But one of the things I noticed when you go by high school and you see the digital signs, right? How many times you see a digital sign applauding someone for going into a technical trade? Or going into manufacturing out of high school, or was in P-TECH. You don't see him praising it. You see him praising the kid that is going to college. That's all you see, right? And there's this expectation. And I think you got to change that mindset to show that it's not just about achievement doesn't mean, and success does not mean college all the time for everybody. Success means doing something with your life after you get out of high school that's meaningful. And P-TECH is extraordinarily meaningful. The trades are extraordinarily meaningful and important. I haven't talked to anybody in any trade that isn't looking for help and that can't get any skill help. And the same thing with the manufacturing. So I think we got to kind of the psychological mindset of the only thing that gets up and gets praised is someone going to school. It's got to change. You got to applaud someone going to IBW or going into manufacturing.
Thanks, Congressman. And Bob, I love the fact that you said, I was going to ask how many CTE programs, and you had it right there. This would be the 27th. So that is just awesome. So, Dr. Manning, tell us what is happening that's new through BOCES?
Well, BOCES, they have the honor and privilege to be partners with 25 school district businesses and higher ed. Unlike community college, great partner. What we started 5 years ago was the embedded career technical education programs, where there are half-day programs, they're technically endorsed, and they're embedded right in the business. Students, that is their classroom, where they go there, they learn the skills, they have a 180-day apprenticeship, internship, side-by-side for professionals. Our educators are getting professional learning on a daily basis. Students are working with state-of-the-art technology. No school district or BOCES can afford on their own. It's a true partnership in the college courses. OCC professor will come to the course. We're at Burdick Automall, where we're partnering with them. We are in WCNY, we're partnering with them. We're at Upstate Hospital, we're physical therapy. They're learning those skills. And I was happy last night, it seems like this is an ongoing theme. I was with school boards with Charlie last night, and we were able to announce that we are working with Lockheed Martin. For next year, we will have an embedded, not pre-engineering, engineering CT program right here in this facility, where students will come here for a half day. They'll start at their junior year. They will accrue college courses, credits through OCC, professor here. They'll be working side by side with engineers, because for years I've been hearing, we need engineers, we need engineers. And meeting with Lockheed, they said, how do we do this? So we partner early with juniors. We're training with engineers, and they get exposed to the technology. We saw the video here. Every time I'm here for a planning meeting, I get excited about the toys that are out there. They never want me to touch them because I'm afraid of them. So if you have a student that right in the facility, on a half day, because they go back to their home school and they can do the extracurricular, they don't miss that. And it becomes engaging and authentic. You can't get any authentic. This is as real as it gets. Because I don't believe in a dropout problem. I will stand here and say, we have a disengagement problem. And our students start getting disengaged at middle school. And legally, they can't tell us into their high school about the embedded models, what is happening on the business side. They are grooming their workforce, working together with community college, the school districts, and the business. So I see down the road, Lockheed will not have problems with engineers once we get this going, because the pipeline's already generated, they made the connection with the students, and the students know what the relevant work is.
That's awesome. When you told me about the embedded program for next year, I just got excited, because that's what we need. When young people can get into the facilities and see what the real world is like, it's exciting.
On a daily basis.
And not to mention the mentoring that they're getting, which I know is part of P-TECH, and if you folks are not engaged as being mentors for P-TECH, you need to talk to the P-TECH folks, because they always need mentors. Jason's back there, he'll tell you we need mentors. So, last but not least, and Congressman, I will come back to you, so I guess Miguel's not the last.
He's the most important one
But
here.
Miguel, tell us, now, look at this young man. He gets it, right? He's dressed for success, he's dressed for the job he wants, not the job he has, all those good things. So tell us, what's been your experience here? Why are you here?
My experience with P-TECH has overall been great, honestly. I've been able to do so many different things that so many people don't get the opportunity to do on a daily basis. Right now I'm taking college classes at the campus 4 days a week, Monday through Thursday. And then after my college classes, I go to high school. My experience with P-TECH has brought me across internships, job shadows, countless amazing field trips to where we get to see cool facilities like Lockheed Martin. During my internship, I gained so much experience within the work field, and I got to see what it was like to actually be an engineer and work on certain, machinery. When I was there, I assembled high-class folding laundry machines at GA Braun. It was truly an incredible experience. the man who mentored me was a very, very good and considerate human being. He was really happy with how I was willing to learn how to work and with my work ethic. This year being my senior year, it's a very good and amazing opportunity that I'm being provided with all of these college credits because I don't have to pay for any of it. It's one of the biggest things. Or my family. We graduate high school after an extra year. So after we're done with the 4 years of initial high school, I go on for a 5th year and continue taking classes at OCC. After my 5th year, I graduate with an associate's degree in mechanical engineering. So that is something that it's unfathomable to most people. This opportunity is been truly amazing and has blessed me in so many different ways, honestly.
That's awesome. So Miguel, what was the first manufacturing facility you walked into?
I think that would have to be Lockheed Martin. It was one of the first manufacturing facilities that my school took us to.
Wow. And what were your first thoughts when you walked in?
Well, my first thoughts when I walked in was this place is absolutely incredible. There was so many cool things to see. There was extremely high-tech machinery.
Right.
You got to see tanks. It was awesome. It was truly incredible.
So he really started up here. It's a good thing you didn't walk into Sells Lock Screw Products the first time. It might not have been quite as, the wow factor would have been there. So, G.A. Braun, what was it like the first time you saw washing machines on that level? Like, what thoughts went through your mind?
Well, first, it was like, wow, I get to work on these. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And it was just really cool to see how they worked as well.
Sure.
All of the complex folding that the machines did for clothes and cloth and things. It was really incredible. And to know that I was to be a part
Sure.
of the assembly of those things was even better.
Did they tell you where a lot of their products go?
No, not specifically, but I do know that they have a very, very good customer basis.
Right.
So they do sell a lot of things and they're doing very well.
Yeah. Believe it or not, he had a much better job at, interning at G.A. Braun. My first job in manufacturing was at G.A. Braun. And it was deburring the 1/4-inch holes in perf on the washing machine. So they handed me a 3/8 drill motor with a countersink, and they said, just stand here and do that. I was in high school. I was a senior in high school at the time. But you'll never go into a hotel, a hospital, or on a cruise ship again without wondering where's the laundry, because G.A. Braun's product is there. So that's awesome. So Congressman.
Yes.
How did our young people end up in the White House?
But what happened was, just like this young man, we had a PTAC event at IT, and 3 kids were there, and they blew everybody away, just like this guy did just now. And so Ivanka invited him down to the White House for the signing ceremony for one of the bills that got more money for current technical education. And, I'm just amazed at these kids that have this type of drive. And one of the questions I have for you is, how was it when you started going into this program? Was it considered cool? Was it considered different? How did kids view you going into this?
Actually, the PTech students in my school, it isn't as different, quite honestly. People kind of look at us as these super smart students who don't do anything but work the entire day.
What a concept, right?
That's awesome. So, how many, and Bob, this might be for you, how many P-Tech students do we have in Syracuse right now?
We have three different levels of P-Tech, we
Yeah.
have our ones that are ITC with our electrical and mechanical technology programs tied to OCC.
Okay.
We have our health career ones that are at the Henniger High School that are tied to the clinical lab tech and the health information technology, again, OCC and SUNY Berlin. And then our last one we just received is our funding for the RPAS, the Drone Technology Program,
Okay.
and the Computer Information System CIS program. So we have 6 different P-Tech pathways for students. Estimated, oh God, I'd have to think, probably a couple of hundred kids on pathway, more than that, probably like 250 total.
That is awesome.
programs. So, and growing, because one of them's just in the first year, one of them's in the third year. The ITC one is our mature program, that's the one we've learned an awful lot about.
Sure.
Kids on the campus up at OCC, learning about what the requirements are, and how we get kids ready for that experience, because OCC's been a great partner for us in learning how to make that happen for the first time, because it's a lot of, you're taking students when they're a junior, and they're up on campus,
Yeah.
and they've got to learn to be a college student. And we've had great supports with OCC, with the supports that they provided to make sure our kids make that transition very easily. So the great thing about like Miguel, they're so prepared.
Right.
His next step is going to be so much easier because he's been on campus, he understands it, he's got that vision of industry, the vision of work, and they understand what they're doing.
That's awesome.
I applaud him, I applaud our other students. They've done a great job, and our staff, our principal in the building, phenomenal about supporting terrific kids. So,
That's great, and I guess this question could go for you or Dr. Manning. So, how does the graduation rate compare for students who are engaged in a P-Tech or an embedded program versus the typical student that is not?
I can't quote statistics, but it's definitely a lot, it increases it.
Okay.
You know, the majority of kids will graduate within the 4 years for our better programs, and they're better prepared for the next step, because they're exposed to the real world.
Sure.
But they're engaged, you see everything's relevant. When you talk about the math and English, the gatekeepers,
Right.
worksheet after worksheet does get boring, but when you know how to apply it,
Mhm.
you know, we get students really excited, and they don't even realize they're doing physics or statistics or anything, because, oh, this is why I need it.
Exactly.
And then we have students that are in the embedded programs taking the college courses, and they're still required to take the Regents exams. We didn't ask for a waiver. They literally go back, and the Regents exams are a joke, they said. You know, they said, this is, what is this? When I'm doing actual college course writing, I'm writing for the magazine at WCNY.
Right.
I'm doing anatomy and physiology at the college level, and I'm going back and taking a science Regent class. Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's a good question, I think. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
When we did the P-Tech event down at IT, all 3 kids were first generation kids going to school from their family. I don't know if that, how about your family? You have your parents go, have education?
Both of my parents are educated, actually, yes. My father has a bachelor's and my mother has an associate's degree. Actually, my father has a master's, excuse me.
So for the P-Tech program, first generation.
I would say, Congressman, probably, and I'm guessing, probably about 85 to 90%. I'm looking,
Yeah.
it would be probably first generation superintendent. Yes. And Dave, one of the things I wanted to talk, one of the things for the data piece
Yes.
is superintendent things. We see that kids that are engaged in the career technical education pathways graduate at a higher rate. John Trimble from CNS leads our data committee for our partnership council, and we had our first results, first some preliminary numbers for it. And students who are engaged in CTE pathways tend to perform better in Regents, tend to graduate at a higher level, and tend to come to school. So we're seeing our freshman class, they want to be there.
Yeah.
They want to be involved in that pathway. And so the rest of the Regents work that they have to do, that's the draws to come to school for the CTE pathway. The rest of it has to be done. But we try to throw that correlation between the two. It's very important.
I think if I could, Bob's got a great point, and you call me Joey, I used to work with Bob. When we talk to technical endorsement, these students are receiving a Regents diploma, and they're getting a technical seal on their diploma. I refer to it as value added. It's not, I think that's what we have to do with career and technical education. Sometimes it's looked at a lower degree credential. It's actually higher.
Under the new ESSA Act, our students who graduate with a technical endorsement now have to carry the same weight as a student who graduates with an advanced Regents. So it's really starting to value the technical set of skills, which is what we want our kids to show here.
That's great. And you know, the term that I kept hearing from everyone was engagement. The students are engaged. And I think the other piece that we need to realize is that so for the mentors that we allow from organizations to work with these young people, they are more engaged in their job and in their community, which makes them more productive within our facilities, because we all know how terrible the employee engagement statistics are. You know, the United States is better. We're somewhere between 28 and 30% of our employees are engaged. Worldwide, only 15% of employees are engaged in their job. That is tragic, and that's why we have a lot of productivity issues. But this type of an activity drives that engagement. Martha, you're not on the panel, but I have a question for you. So how many apprentices, roughly, have now been registered through the program you're leading?
We have 125 that have been registered in central New York. We have a couple hundred more across the state.
Wow.
And I think the more exciting piece is that the companies who were engaged a year ago are coming back to say, okay, now I'm ready to start with my second set.
That is
They've
awesome.
seen success, and they see that this is, a pathway for their employees to learn and to grow and to remain part of their community.
That's terrific. Just think about that. You know, 120 apprentices, and you're entering your second year, right? Already, registered apprentices in central New York, and you know, throughout the state, add another couple hundred to that. That is huge, because organizations will decide to expand plants, like Mark said, where the workforce is. So we're giving people the opportunity to have meaningful jobs, you know, that are fun, and Miguel's talking about it. You know, I've gone through an apprenticeship. I know what it's like to be learning from an engineer rather than a professor, because everything they're teaching me, I'm applying as I'm doing it, type of thing. So my question for Dr. Manning and for Bob Leslie is, what do you need from the manufacturing community to be even more successful?
I'm looking at my superintendent because he always says I'm always asking. So I'm going to make the big ask. So one of the things that we have found a model that works to get kids engaged into the work environment into manufacturing. And it's our career coaching model. And I'm looking at, well, some of our career coaches have been with us for 4 years. And if we can get our business partners, our industry partners, to partner with us to send for an hour a month an employee into our school district to meet with our 9th grade students and sit with them, and it creates that visioning for our kids about, you know, what they can be. And it's so critical because we have to show them what the opportunities are for them. So if I could ask for one thing from our business partners and our manufacturing partners, and is to have that engagement piece with us, because that's what makes Miguel, that's what the connection that he made in 9th grade to the businesses, to understanding about what he could be, and what he's going to grow into, and what his aspirations for education are. That's the tie that we would ask you. And I have to thank our we had, I think, just had an event last week, 22 career coaches in for our 9th grade PE program. And that's the difference, because it gives them that vision of where they can be. And that would be my one ask for the business partners, if they can help us.
Great, thank you. So he needs mentors.
Yes.
After you speak, I got a question to follow what we do in Congress. I know what everyone's going to say. I want to hear it anyway.
On our end, working with business, and what I love now, before we were in silos and now we're working together, is space and expertise. It's really a true partnership.
Okay.
We have BOCES, we have OCC, and we have businesses start right at the table together. We design things together. Instead of coming here, they're coming here as a classroom, and then they're working side by side. I just want to piggyback and talked about the employees. This will be a great study, but it'll never be mine, because I will never get another dissertation as long as I live. But when we went into WCNY for multimedia broadcasting, I remember Bob Dano, the CO, announced it, and a lot of the employees said, oh my God, we're going to have juniors and seniors running all over the place. This is going to be a zoo. Now they're colleagues. If we were to pull that program, not only would we have the parents and students, but we would have the employees. We're finding that at Burdick, we're finding it at Upstate, where the employees get energized, they get excited, they're giving back their craft. So really, if I want big ask, we need more space and more expertise to sit there and work together. And I see it, and that's what's really exciting. We're doing things differently.
space and expertise. Thank you, Congressman.
So I'd like to hear from manufacturers too. The P-TECH component is important, but what else can we do for businesses and the P-TECH program, I think? More and more CTE dollars are great, obviously, but from a manufacturing standpoint, what can we do in Congress to help you with that? One of the things I'm thinking of is some sort of way to take somebody who's maybe a raw product, who's not ready to work, but then train them up and somehow incentivize you to do that is something I'm thinking of.
Yeah, I think, so once we have employees, right, and once they're part of the company, there's all kinds of tuition reimbursement. If they want to go on to get a degree or associate's degree or something else, I think it's getting them in the door and having an interest in manufacturing that starts the process. We've put, just at Welch Allen, probably 50 to 100 people through their 4-year degree while they've been working actively. And I think that helps as well because it's a mutually beneficial and they've gone on to be leaders and managers and everything else, or engineers. So getting that connection. The other thing, we talked about mentors. I think making the connection with companies who are doing the mentoring with companies who aren't, right? And letting them know, what a day in the life is of being a mentor, because there may be a little bit of hesitation to say, I don't have time, my people don't have time, what is this going to involve? I think connecting the dots between people that are doing the mentoring right now with people that aren't would be really helpful. Because some people may just be like, our company isn't going to have time for that because they don't know that it is only an hour a month. And they may not know what the benefit is, short-term and long-term. I think both of those things would help.
Thank you. Mark, did you?
Yeah, I think that just 2 comments there. We've been so 4-year, 2-year institutional higher education focused. And I agree, there's great programs out there. A lot of companies subsidize that and they have a lot of flexibility built around that. When it comes to career technical skill, knowledge, and ability and development for someone who wants to be a welder, wants to be a journeyman, wants to be a skilled maintenance mechanic. The programs are fairly challenging to work with. And I use the word we have to get creative with them and oftentimes have to pull from several different programs to combine something to, one, develop the training program we're looking for, and then try to find a way to not bear a significant impact to the business. I think if we put that type of energy towards that career technical shift, like we're doing with P-TECH and kind of getting excitement around other than going to college, not that college is bad, but there's a whole other pathway that I think a generation has been very successful in the United States on. I think that's something that, as a model, I think we can work on a bit. The other thing I want to echo, to tie 2 things, Dave and Bob's comments, support for P-TECH, support for the students. Heard very much the same thing as a leader in my organization of how are we going to have the time to work with these students? How are we going to engage them? How am I going to still get my job done? We made allocations for that, and the moment for me as the leader of a plant that really clicked was we were hosting some of the Oswego County P-TECH students in a STEM challenge, where their mentors were actually leading them through a catapult. We gave them some of our products, they made a catapult, and we had a little fun with it. The joy the mentors had, I think, was more than the students in that. And in the organization, other people started to take notice. What is that? What are they doing? How do I get involved? And as an organization of 450 employees, the shot of enthusiasm that put into the team for that engagement piece, I think that was one of the biggest moments to create a positive energy within our organization. We're doing something good and we're building for our success. That was just one of them. Imagine that over a 5-year.
Sure. That's great. And I want to encourage folks, next Wednesday, the blog post / email that I'm going to put out, we'll have the statistics of what allowing our employees to engage in these types of give back type of things will do to your productivity. It's not going to cost you. It's going to manyfold bring back additional engagement and productivity for your staff. So I encourage you to keep your eyes open for that. So Congressman, it's interesting. You just assumed that we were going to ask for a bunch more money.
Doing something new every day.
You know? And I had to be really careful how I said, notice I didn't say we're not, because I didn't want, the superintendent to say, what, don't lie. But I think what you were able to help facilitate with getting our students to the bill signing created an awareness.
Sure did.
And in anything you can do to help raise the awareness of what's being done in central New York will, parents will begin to hear about it. One of my thoughts is one of the groups that we have to find a way to connect with is the parents, because the parents are saying, you have to go get a 4-year degree. And if you don't get a 4-year degree, you won't be successful in life.
Well, that's the mindset people have.
Yeah.
And I was at Dot Foods about 6 months ago. You know what they're paying starting salary for a truck driver?
How much, I don't know.
$70,000 with no experience.
And
So
no tuition, no debt.
If you think about the time value of money, in
Right.
4 years you're not in college, you're working,
Mhm.
and then the money you save from your tuition. I venture to guess at 55, so you look at both. I think the gap is closing between college education and a career in manufacturing. And I'm not here to poo-poo college,
Right.
but at the same token, there's an awful lot of opportunities out there. And I think the biggest mindset is changing the schools district's measurables,
Right.
in which, so the measurable now is what percentage of kids go to college. That's part of the rating. That's number one. I think seeing where they are in 3 or 4 years, whether they're gainfully employed is more important and measurable. It's more difficult, but I think that's what they got to start looking at. When you change the measurables, you change the mindset of the parents. You change the mindset of the parents, then it's going to be a lot different. It's a totally different ballgame.
Very good, thank you. And and one of those measurables is the graduation rate
Mhm.
for students engaged in career technical education versus those that aren't. So we've got about another 20 minutes. How about questions from you folks? I want to thank our panelists. We're going to start with Dr.
First, thank you to all of the panel. Thank you to Lockheed Martin for hosting this. Incredible. Congressman, I too want to just applaud the work that you're doing at the national level, and really also to ask you to take a very careful look at many of the resources that school districts receive are tethered to an ancient formula known as Title I funding. And it has not, and don't get me wrong, we need that funding without question. However, it's tethered to grade 3 through 8 tests that are literally could have been carved into the walls of a caveman. And so
We're in a really feel.
we're in a digital world, and I use this example all the time because I think it's one that you'll remember. I had a torn meniscus. I went in to have it repaired. 20 years ago, they would have cut it open with a scalpel. They would have stitched it. I would have been bandaged. I would have been healing for many weeks with either a wheelchair or crutches. I walked out of a surgical center in 2 hours with a cane because they didn't continue to, in the medical profession, sharpen the scalpels, design better scalpels. They went into a digital world to understand laparoscopic and arthroscopic surgery. In education, we have yet to be able to truly do that and transform our educational environments, whether they're P-TECH, early college, high schools, whatever they may be, because we're still tethered to paper pencil assessments because of the way in which the federal government feeds us our resources. So it's not about necessarily more resources, it's untethering those resources that can only be achieved by complying with these ridiculous, and again, you inherited this. We get it, but we need to help you to untether that assessment link.
I couldn't possibly agree with you more. I mean, you can't teach someone in Mississippi the same way you teach them in the FM school district. And you can't teach someone in the FM school district the same way you teach someone in the city school districts. There's so many different variables. And again, the measurables that the state puts on you for ranking your school districts is ridiculous. And the measurables that the federal government puts on and the requirements they put on people are ridiculous. We're teaching kids how to take tests instead of teaching kids how to learn.
How
And I think that's the
to
biggest
take
problem.
the knowledge they have and do something. That's what Miguel is saying. He has to do something with that knowledge, and then from that, he further learns how to improve his performance. If we will help you to do that.
Yeah,
We will,
I think that one of the things you need to do is is, get the money to the states and let the teachers go back to being what they were before, creative and thinking outside the box. P-TECH is the biggest thinking out the box thing that's come down the pike in an awfully long time. And it's only because there's such a dramatic need. But this should be the norm. This shouldn't be some kind of exception. And BOCES and all the great things they do, the creativity should be part of it. And it's this drive to get everyone to college and the drive to get everyone to get advanced degrees is, to me, part of the problem. Not to say you shouldn't, but look at Germany, right? Germany's a manufacturing Goliath, but what do? Around 8th and 9th grade, they start putting kids on different tracks based on what their aptitude are and what their desires are. And manufacturing is just as revered as a college education. And if we get to that here, through flexibility with teaching and with and stop getting out of the Stone Ages with our requirements on people, the measurables for testing is ridiculous. I haven't talked to a teacher who hasn't been frustrated with the fact that they feel like they're teaching kids how to pass tests instead of critical thinking.
Yeah,
And
we
that's the
spend
biggest
an
problem.
inordinate amount of resources,
Big
time and
time.
energy on something that truly no longer matters.
That's right.
And we'll all tell you that. And I respect our commissioner, he's a wonderful commissioner, but I will tell you, and I've been doing this for 47 years, Congressman, there isn't anything about the New York State or any other assessment that we're giving that's informing us how to better improve instruction. And I will tell you that with many years and many degrees, that it's really the emperor has no clothes agenda, because it tells us nothing.
Right.
But we spend millions and billions of dollars giving them every single year.
Totally agree.
Thank you, Don. I will get you, I just want to make one comment. So, Congressman, I want to also just draw you back to something that Valerie said. So it's not that manufacturers are saying you don't need to get the four-year degree or the advanced degree, but there may be a different path to getting there. And what she talked about was the tuition reimbursement that companies have. So a young person coming out of high school that goes through a P-TECH program may think at the beginning that they want to just stay in, maybe get their associate degree and then stay in a technical trade. And then find out, wow, I really do like engineering. And then at that company go on to gain that engineering degree, and it didn't cost them a dime.
Well, I think about how many kids in high school. I've got 3 boys. One, I had to call in college and tell them to go and have a good time once in a while. That wasn't me, by the way. And number 2, my second boy, he's in college and he's got a good balance between fun and going to school. And the third one, I don't think he has as much of a desire for college right now. It could be in 3 or 4 years when he gets a job and a great employer, and a great employer says, hey, we can pay for your education, but he may go back. So I think that's part of it too. You got to recognize it. There's late bloomers, especially, but boys are especially so.
Sure.
I have 5 sisters. They remind me every single day.
I tell you what's going on in Kentucky with Toyota. Explain the embedded model down my colleague down there, the superintendent. They put embedded CTE programs in the facility, term in the P-TECH. Students are graduating with their associates in May, their high school in June. And what the company is doing, saying if you want to continue the pathway, because now they're exposed to it, they actually work for Toyota Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Thursday and Friday, they stay there, get their bachelor's. And at this point, I said, what's the give back? They're saying none, because what they're saying is we're grooming our workforce, and we feel if we're committed to the employees starting in high school, they're going to be committed to the organization. They actually go one step further. We're putting an embedded early child care in the facility, providing daycare for the employees. So again, this is the whole partnership in saying let's create our own pathway, our own employees, and make that investment.
Very good. That's awesome.
That's great.
Yes, the lady in the black and white striped top.
Hello, I thank everybody for coming out today. This has been a very good event. One thing I want to mention in the world of careers, and I wondered if Jody, this would probably be directed at you, have you been able to make any connections with the dental community in this area as far as education? In central New York, working in dental offices in Oswego and Onondaga County, there is a big lack of dental education and a big lack of program in that field.
The answer is no, and I'm not opposed to it. The physical therapy, how we started that embedded program, that was the Department of Labor came to us and said, there's gonna be a shortage of physical therapists, and they need a doctorate, and we went to OCC. So the answer to your question, no, but if the Dental Association wants to approach me and said, how can you create the program? More than likely. And that's what's happening, there are people approaching us, true partnership, there's a shortage. Engineers, Lockheed, there's a shortage, okay? So it's something bigger, which we're very good at. How can we work together and fill that pipeline? So I'm not opposed to talking about it, but the answer to your question, no, not at the high school level at this time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stacey.
Probably don't need one, but I'll use it anyways. A couple of comments and then a question. First of all, Miguel, you're amazing. As a past school board member of the Syracuse City School District Board of Education, as one of the founding members of the Blue Ribbon Task Force for CTE in the district, you make me and the city of Syracuse very proud.
Thank you so much.
To get on to education, and I know I'm preaching to the choir, but I think it's really important, and the fact that this is about education here today really warms me. In that Blue Ribbon Task Force, I got struck by a bolt of lightning. As I sit before you as a high school graduate and a college graduate only because of industrial arts classes that I took in middle school. And we lost that, and as I was sitting there on that Blue Ribbon Task Force trying to figure out what the Syracuse City School District would do about career and technical education, a bolt of lightning hit me that the primary purpose of public education is to create a viable workforce for a capitalistic economy. Now, I'll say that to some of my Syracuse University professors. They live on the east side, a lot of professors, and they look at me apparently they're insulted, like, I'm sorry. I said, no, John, we need philosophers, we need geographers, we need ministers, we need welders, we need grocery store operators, we need all kinds of people, but that's what we need to educate people to continue to maintain our society. The problem is, about 20, 25 years ago, we went off the rails. We stopped funding programs like industrial arts because we got so focused on shoving zeros and ones into kids' heads. And we need to put those zeros and ones into kids' heads because it's a very technical society. However, we need to give them a reason for the zeros and ones, and we lost that completely. So it's really important that we go back and start to look at education fundamentally. Sure, we need to test, we need to make sure that things are working, but we need to give kids a purpose. I hated school. And I'm a son of 2 doctors, medical doctors, and I was not going to college. And I barely made it out of high school, except for one industrial arts teacher who talked me into going to Buffalo State and becoming an industrial arts teacher. So I taught for a number of years. I now own a business. You don't know what you're doing in middle school and high school. And we need to give kids, that's the real fundamental thing about education. I know I'm preaching to the choir, but we really need to go deeper than just trying to fund this or fund that. We need to remap the way we run our education
And I think
system.
that goes to the point that the ASM chief made, and that is that we need to unshackle individuals' districts' abilities to kind of prioritize their curriculum to some extent. There needs to be a lot more flexibility. And this top-down approach doesn't work, I think. And given untying teachers' hands, and if a school district comes up with an idea that, based on the economic environment in their district, they got to be able to pursue that. They should be able to pursue that within parameters. You need reading, writing, arithmetic, of course, but you do have to have that flexibility. If you don't have that flexibility, I think we're really doing a disservice, and that's really what I'm all about with this. That's why I just love this discussion today. It's like outside the box.
Yeah, and thank you very much. And I appreciate that, and I trust you will continue to work on that. Now my question, and Bob, I didn't cue you up on this one, so I hope you got a good answer. I talked about shop class in 7th grade at Levy Junior High School in the city. And what is the district and the Career and Technical Education Department doing about pushing exposure to CTE down to the lower grades? It's great that we start in 9th grade, but the 8th graders go in with basically no real understanding of the zeros and ones in their heads. What are we doing about that?
So we're starting to look at that approach. I think one of the things that we've worked at Syracuse City is to get our top set in our 9th and 12th grade program set. Now we have to start moving into the middle schools. You hit a great point, Steve. One of the things that we have to do that we're establishing as a district, we have to get to the parents of the 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, and we have to have strong conversations about what students should be taking. You know, we're along with Jody, we partner very much with SUNY Upstate. In the medical field, math and science, kids have to be in a rich math and science environment, but then they need to know what ties to that. So we're starting to have that career exposure piece in our middle schools. And we will formalize it over the next few years about what the middle school piece will look like and how it will tie to our pathways. Because right now we have a tremendous amount of middle schools that come into our pathways, but we need to start reaching lower, and we need to engage parents at a higher level so they understand. Because that's where it starts. It doesn't start in 9th grade. It starts in this, they all have to be able to read. You know, our superintendent has an initiative read by 2nd grade, and that is critical. Then we've got to get the math skills in our students and the science skills, because that's what all these technical jobs are leading towards. So we're working on that. That's one of our new approaches. It's one of the things that we see, especially with our P-TECH programs. We have to have our students and our parents understand the rigor that's attached to a P-TECH program, the rigor that's attached to a current technical education program, because it demands more of our kids.
Take it down to kindergarten for all it's worth. Well, you really need to know why you need to read.
I'll look at the superintendent and say, okay. But it is. It's that fundamental. It has to be that. And it's really about our parents. We have to get our parents engaged in the educational process. And we have to, as superintendent Kaziao said, we have to uncheck some of the things, because it stops us from getting to where we need to be.
Who can speak to pre-apprentice?
So
I wasn't sure if I was going to put you on the spot.
Yeah. With Randy and Joe's direction, and with our superintendent, the design of the pre-apprentice program is really to take students who aren't really sure where they want to be and what they want to do, and create that vision and getting them into some of these opportunities at a very young age. So that's what we're trying to do, because we know we have a set of students who aren't ready for college. They're just not prepared. They're not socially emotionally there, but they're ready if we teach them about work. And we teach them about what it needs. And when you sit down with our business partners, who have been, some of them are in the room, have been engaged in some of the preliminary discussions about pre-apprentice, the skill sets are very defined as what they're looking for. And I think that's what we're targeting with the pre-apprenticeship program, is how do we make sure that, because and I'm probably going to throw myself into the West, it's Romeo and Juliet is great, but it doesn't help you when you have to have an employee on the floor who's running a machine and understand how to pick up a set of mics and check the parts, And I get there's a point for all that, but we also have to put foundational skills into our kids so they understand measurement, and they understand the safety of being in that environment. And that's what the pre-apprenticeship program is really geared at. It's going after that and getting kids excited about work. And hopefully, the goal is that kids will be on paid internships and right into a job. So when they graduate high school, they're an employee. And our hope and our attraction is to get the businesses involved so that they're coming in to create their new workforce.
And Bob, what age, what grade level?
So right now we're thinking it's probably going to be targeted at 10th, 11th, and 12th grade.
Okay.
And what we're doing is we're not sure if we're going to get down to the 9th yet. It's kind of still in discussion stages about where we're going to be with it. But it will be a formal pathway for us next year. This is our soft start where we're kind of figuring out some of the curricular pieces and how we're going to do it. But we have plans to have kids out on job shadows and internship phases in the spring, and hopefully making connections for some of our first kids with jobs in June.
That's terrific. Just to let you know how far advanced our region is. I had a conversation last weekend with my son-in-law, who runs a math lab at Ohio State, one of Ohio State's branches. And he was so excited to tell me about the fact that they've got this engineering program, so they're attracting, engineers to come into Ohio State. And I just said, Andrew, that's great. In Central New York, we're working in high school. And I got to talk about the P-TECH programs and the CTE programs. We are ahead of the curve because of the efforts of you folks in the room. And that, so just be proud of who we are and what we've done, and use, I know Jody's a big fan of John Maxwell, as I am. The 16th irrefutable law of leadership is the law of Big Mo, law of momentum. You start small, you get the train going, and you keep it going. We just need to keep adding fuel to this. We have time for one more question. Nobody wants to ask the last question. Well, then this is probably like church. Nobody's ever upset if it gets over with a little bit earlier. So, but I want again a round of applause for our panelists. And especially for Miguel. Outstanding. vacation with you, that's good. Thank you again to the Congressman for coming and for representing us so well in Washington, and Joe and P-TECH. I think I turn it back over to Dave.
Thank you, David, great job, and because there is some time left, could you turn to page 53 in your hymnals? Our closing recessional hymn will be, look, I think I've been involved, Joe, in this program for most of the 9 years, and I'm not putting these people on a pedestal, but I think it's probably the best panel, and perhaps the best panel discussion we've had, thanks to all of you. I'm not even sure we've had a sitting congressman here before, but we have this year, and it's good to have John Cacto here, and Miguel. No pressure, John, I know we've got a lot of things going on in the next few weeks between now and Thanksgiving, but is there another bill signing that Miguel could get to sometime?